sorry for the roar of the air cleaner. The local catfish are smoking copious amounts of skunk, and it's pouring in through my front door. I leave the door open because I don't like to use the air conditioner, when it's not necessary, and I hope to get the occasional whiff of fresh air. But the catfish, the bottom feeders, they're smoking the really nasty stuff called skunk. So it's legal across the DC line, which is only 7 miles away. So they don't do anything about it in my area either. So the Watchman has got an excellent video today about the Texas Lone Star tick and the implications that they knew as far back as 10 years ago that it was bioengineered and then let out into the world to bite people and essentially change their genome to where once bitten, they can't eat meat. What is that can't eat meat syndrome?
A can't eat meat syndrome.
Alpha-gal.
Alpha-gal syndrome.
Alpha-gal. So Alpha-gal sounds like something off of Lost in Space. Hey, it's Alpha-gal. So today is World Hunger Day, and I thought that I would give you a few interesting little tidbits, no pun intended, about world hunger. All right. What are the main methods of food waste in the world? Okay. So Rebellion says hi. Hi, Rebellion. And we're talking about today being World Hunger Day. And there are several resources on this, on food waste. There are 8 resources. It says food waste occurs throughout the supply chain with nearly 70% discarded by consumers and food service businesses. So Hanan says hi. Hi, Hanan. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe. So I thank you folks that I'm coming up on 9,000 subs. I love you all. I thank those of you that send me a care package every so often. Laura Floyd. Shout out to Rosemary and Dave for the cookie box, the cookie care package. And most of those went into the gospel gift bags, which cost me about $5 or $6 a piece. I'm not getting any support from anybody on those, but it's okay. God has been faithful and made that way out of no way for me to continue the privilege of sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay, so it says Nearly 70% of food is discarded by consumers and food service businesses. The ultimate methods for this waste include landfill, composting, anaerobic digestion, animal feed, and donations. Not as much is donated as you would think because it's a liability issue after food has sat out for 4 hours on a buffet. They're legally required to take that food and throw it out and destroy it. And many restaurants denature the food. They will take the food and put cleaning powder on it or something and bag it up and throw it into the dumpster. When my nephew worked at a chicken joint, a guy knocked on the glass at 12 o'clock at night and said that he was starving and could, since the store was closing, could they give him some chicken? They said no. And, unfortunately, you either give the guy the chicken and lose your job, or you don't give him the chicken and you come out and find that the guy has taken a brick and rubbed it all over your brand new Camaro, which is what happened to my nephew. So the main way for food to be wasted, as far as restaurants are concerned, is buffet, where they put trays and trays of food out, and people pick over the food. And then let's say the food's been out 4 hours, and the restaurant's got 3 more hours to go. Well, they put fresh food out for the last 3 hours for fewer and fewer clients. So that's really wasteful. That's really wasteful. So I have a suspicion that dog food that they make out of human food is really processed food scraps. All right. But in any case, it's not legal if they get caught. It's not legal. Eric Stewart is in the house. What's up, Eric? So, all right. Which countries have the least food? I know that's going to be like Somalia. Somalia ranks lowest globally in terms of food availability and malnutrition, with over 51% of its population suffering from severe undernourishment, chronic food shortage. And then, of course, you have contaminated water. You have contaminated water, and you have war are the other factors as far as contributing to world hunger. So Beetle is there. Brittany, nobody has said anything that's wrong. Okay? So, okay. I mean, he reported he repeated, you know, he repeated his hello, you know, but that's not something where we hop on the guy, especially without asking me. Especially without asking me, you know. So yeah, he's asking what did he do? He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what he even did. I mean, you just you went full gun on the person without even giving them a warning or anything like that, or telling them what displeased you. So I removed you as moderator because you got too aggressive. I hope that doesn't offend you, and I hope we stay friends and all that other stuff. Okay? So Somalia seems like it's a world thing. And see, you caused a beetle. You're okay, all right? I took care of it. You're okay. So don't worry about it. I handled the situation. The moderator caused more interference with the program by being overzealous. So just everybody chill out. The USA typically ranks in the middle to top tier globally for food, depending on the metric. No, I don't need any mods for the lives because the comments aren't recorded. On a live stream, the comments aren't recorded. They don't go into the recorded file. So I'm not all that concerned about it. The only time I'll call somebody to the mat is for racially motivated comments, hate speech, or blasphemy. So those things, you put your soul salvation at risk anyway. So like I said, otherwise I'm not too concerned about it. It says the USA typically ranks in the middle to top tier for food, depending on the metric. I guess it's saying food waste. So America ranks 8th to 13th for overall food quality. For food security, safety, and availability, the U.S. ranks exceptionally high, second or third in the world. And there's a company in Canada that has started a $1 billion startup processing crickets in place of meat. There's a couple problems with crickets. Crickets inherently carry mold, and there's a very nasty parasite that crickets carry. And also crickets have chitin, CHI something. It's called chitin. And birds can eat crickets, no problem. But people can't. People are not supposed to eat crickets. And for people with an allergy, like myself, to it, it causes splotches on your skin and bumps around your neck. I ate some what are those Mexican chips called? The Mexican chips like they serve at Chi-Chi's. I bought a bag of those and it had chitin. It had ground up beetle in it. And man, I started to itch and got short of breath and had streaks on my arm and around my neck. How do they list ground up beetle in food? The terms to look for in food where they put bugs in the food on purpose is carmine, cochineal extract, carminic acid, or natural red number 4. Natural red number 4, which is that real pretty red dye when you go to Mickey D's and you get a strawberry sundae and it's got that ruby red slipper red dye. That is natural red number 4, and it comes from a bug. And they squash the bug, and the bug gives off this really dark, beautiful red color. And they call it natural red number 4. It's squashed up bugs that they're putting in your ice cream. Again, the Watchman did an excellent video today. And I don't ask for any support from my channel. If I need anything, I go to God and ask him. But Watchman, his channel is his only livelihood. And the YouTube Thought Police have demonetized his channel. So if you go to Watchman, please consider contributing to his Cash App, which is Watchman 1963. I'm assuming that's his birth year. It's a very easy Cash App address. WATCHMAN 1963. So, all right. Cruise buffet food waste. All right. Cruise ship buffets are among the highest generators of food waste due to massive scale and strict public health regulations. Once food is placed on a buffet line, it's subject to the one-way rule, which means it can't come back to the kitchen. It can't be reused. It can't be repurposed or donated. It's got to be ground up on board and expelled from the ship using environmental technology. So, and the reason is, once a tray of food is set out on a buffet where hundreds of people can come by and breathe on it and touch it and contaminate it, it's officially deemed waste, even if it's entirely untouched. So once they put that beautiful tray of food out on the buffet and somebody picks their nose and then handles the spoon, or they cough on it or sniffle on it, it's deemed food waste. And they do not give it to the crew. It cannot be served to staff. It's got to be thrown out. So and they don't allow buffet food to go back to a cabin. It's weird. You can order room service on your cruise ship for free, but if you go to the buffet and take food back to your cabin, they typically charge a $70 cleaning and sanitation fee to clean the room up and the hallway going back to the buffet. So modern cruise ships such as the Sun Princess use industrial biodigesters, and they use microorganisms to break down biodegradable food into safe, harmless slurry. Yum. After that, they can liquefy the food or dehydrate it, storage in tanks as gray water. Used oil is upcycled and collected and offloaded at ports and converted into biodiesel. So, artificial intelligence now is being used by cruise companies in order to more effectively figure out what people will eat and what people will leave behind. And I could have saved them that. If I'm on a cruise ship and they're going to serve cow tongue or octopus or snails or anything gross like that, I'm going to leave it alone and have the wedge salad. I'm not up for eating bugs and snails, and I won't eat lobster. Lobster used to be called the cockroach of the sea. And if you take a lobster and you break it open uncooked, it's just a big snurtle. It's like somebody hocked a lunger. It's like somebody hocked a lunger before they cook it. Same as a cockroach on the inside. It's got a shell and a gross liquid center. And then you cook it and the liquid becomes a solid. And they used to feed lobsters to prisoners. Until what year did they feed lobster to prisoners? So, lobsters were primarily fed to prisoners and undentured servants during the 17th and 18th centuries in colonial America. The practice was ended by the mid-1800s. The shift away from lobster is prison and trash food gradually happened for a few reasons: diminishing supply, the rise of canning. Transcontinental Railroad began serving lobsters to affluent customers, like they serve snails. So, yeah. Okay. List food insecurity by country. So, again, most of foods insecure countries are sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and parts of South Asia. And that's because of war and famine and all sorts of other illnesses and plagues and stuff like that. So, and you see the little children lining up for food, and they get a bowl of lentils in hot water. And you know, they're grateful for anything to eat. But some of them, the expression of the little child is, you know, can't I have a Happy Meal or something? They look at the lentils in the hot water with this real sadness in their eyes, like, you know, am I ever going to have a Happy Meal during my life? So, Nigeria has 34 million people facing high levels of hunger because of conflict. Democratic Republic of Congo, that's where they're killing the Christians, by the way. That's where they're trying to wipe out the rest of the Christians and put Sharia in place. So I'm just saying, the one true and living God is not going to bless that, but I don't want to go off on a tangent. DRC Republic of Congo, roughly 26.5 million people. Again, it's conflict, weather, and displacement. Because if you're moving around in tents, it's hard to raise a crop. Sudan is 19.5 million. Yemen, an estimated 18 million. Bangladesh, 16 million. Afghanistan, 13.8. Myanmar, 12 million. South Sudan, 8 million. Syria, 7.2. And I want to say something about Syria and the Gaza Strip and all that other stuff. If the Jews stopped defending themselves, they would be annihilated. If, on the other hand, the people from Hamas and the other antagonists, if they would stop lobbing fire balloons over to Israel and stop turning infrastructure into IEDs and lobbing that at Israel, if they stopped, Israel would stop. But Israel knows that if they stop, they're not going to survive. If the Gazans would stop, the whole conflict would stop, and there would be peace in the Middle East. So, when Gaza was given back to the Arabs, Gaza had nurseries and flowers and trees and everything planted. They gave the people infrastructure. They gave them concrete. They gave them piping and stuff for water. And what did they do? They used the concrete to build tunnels to crawl back under the Jews to try and annihilate them. And they turned the pipes into improvised mortars. So I'm not Jewish. I'm about fairness. I'm not political. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Continuing countries with highest population of starving and hungry are Sierra Leone, Malawi, Liberia, Nigeria, Kenya. Okay. So, all right. Let me see. Hungry Fat Chick Channel. So, when you're eating enough food for 5 people and other people are starving, that's why gluttony is a sin. Gluttony is a sin, and it's a spirit. So this isn't even her. That's not her on a really bad day. Sometimes she'll have food enough for 5 people, you know, and say, well, she, you know, she's full. And so she's going to start eating faster to cram the last little bit down. I've noticed about obese people, they're always worried that there's not going to be enough food. You see them on these mukbang channels, and they survey their food. They're like proud, happy, and they worry. All they talk is food. That is a spirit of fear. It's a spirit of gluttony, and it's also a witchcraft spirit, and it's a stronghold of bondage. The lady herself has said in her own words that she's subject to a spirit of bondage, of gluttony. She calls it for what it is. That's God's way of making sure that people understand that what they're doing is wrong. Someday she'll have to answer for that. A lot of people say they eat because of stress. Doesn't matter. My father, when I was a kid, punched me in the face and knocked me down the stairs and literally almost beat the crap out of me. Almost beat me unalive. And I didn't have to develop habits that were injurious to other people, you know. So I wish young people, I made one mistake when my father put me out of the house at 15 years old. I went to work full time when I was 14, making $9 a day. All right. $9 a day, not $9 an hour. And there were men who were raising families on that kind of money. And I made $9 a day working in a gas station. And then a garbage man offered me $20 a day. I didn't know that was working from dark in the morning till dark at night, being used like a pack mule. having the ever loving crap beat out of me when I couldn't pick up enough garbage fast enough. You know, it was a non-existent childhood of me walking behind a hot garbage truck and working with these men that were in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, hard as nails and strong. Oh my gosh. And they dealt with the hardship. One guy thought the garbage job was a good job because he had been a coal miner previous to working on the garbage truck. And the guy was in a coal mine in West Virginia, I believe it was, in a 4-foot square box. Picture this, buried alive underneath the ground, 4-foot square box, and water up to his knees. 2 feet of water, 2 feet of breathing room, and you hope that no more water comes into the shaft. Very brave man. He didn't even consider how brave he was, putting his life at risk every day for a very little amount of money. And where are the miners trapped? Speaking of that, in Laos, there are miners that are trapped in a shaft in Laos. So Laos, I think, is Vietnam. And they found 5 of the miners alive in an oxygen-deprived chamber, almost filled to the top with water. 2 miners are still missing, so keep them in prayer. Keep them in prayer. But young people, I had a neighbor who loved me like a son. And that was the biggest mistake that I made when my parents, who loved me so much, locked me out of the house and went out of the country on vacation because they cared so much for me. And my brother writes this garbage under my father's name. And I don't really understand that because my father treated my brother like a dog also. Treated him like an absolute dog. And my brother proudly writes underneath my father's name, really because he's not talented enough in and of himself. So he's riding on my father's apron strings, so to speak, and using his name, allowing the confusion to springboard his career so he can sit at home and write his pablum. And my sister, who I believe deep in my heart has got what's called Stockholm Syndrome, going all the way back to her childhood, writes this garbage about how wonderful my father was and how he inspired her to be a writer, blah, blah. And the family thinks I'm hateful. I'm a very loving person. But if something is crap, I'm going to wipe it off my shoe. I'm not going to track it all around the house and call it good. I remember there were times when I lived in Mount Airy I had neighbors who raised horses, and if they stepped in horse crap, they thought it was good because they were proud they owned horses. I never figured that out either. But in any case, there was one time I was like 11 or 13, still a very young child. And my father, now I can tell you this truthfully, if you tell a lie on a dead person, you curse yourself. But what I'm telling is the truth. I can absolutely tell it with a clean conscience because I forgave the man. He never said he was sorry. I forgave the man, and I was with him on his deathbed, patting his hand and telling him everything was all right. I never brought up the abuse. And see, God did that. God gave me the ability to deal with the hurt and be there for my father so that I didn't have to go through the rest of my life guilty of having said something foul on his deathbed. Okay? So I was there right up to the last breath, literally. And I called my relatives and I said, well, 11:38 Buck just passed. I didn't get from my relatives, gee, that must be really a shock to you. And you drove an hour and a half from Frederick to the hospital after work. You must be exhausted. Why don't you come stay in your old room 2 blocks from the hospital? No, I didn't get any of that. I got thank you click from my relatives. And I opened up my can of Coca-Cola and my 85-cent package of peanut butter crackers. And that was my dinner. And I drove back another hour and a half to Frederick. After seeing my father, I gave him a good send-off. And the cool thing was at the moment he passed, I could feel like angels or something go through me, collect my father's spirit. And then for a split second, we were all together. And then whoosh, out the window they went, taking my father with them. And I felt happy. I felt happy because my father accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior 3 years before he passed away. And for 3 years, he was my best buddy and pal and confidant. And I would pick him up in the Lincoln and take him out to a nice lunch at O'Donnell's or the Thunderbird or Bish Thompson's. I used to love to go to Bish Thompson's because Billy Bish, the owner, was 600 pounds. And almost like a show, he would eat every 45 minutes. So if you came in at the right time, you saw Billy sit down and eat an enormous plate of food and then get up and go back to work. And then just when you were finishing your meal, you would see Billy come with another enormous platter of food and sit down and eat it. And he could eat a lobster tail in one bite. He'd stuff the lobster in one side of his cheeks, stuff it in the other, and it was really a tense moment, wondering if he was going to choke to death. Because when you eat lobster, it's got sinew in it that breaks apart. And when it breaks apart, the piece of lobster actually gets larger. It gets larger. So, old Pop channel. So, let me see. Oh, they cut the comments off. They cut the comments off. The comments are the comments are not coming through. Weird Al is like my mystery relative that knows me but won't tell me who they are. I don't care anyway, because even if Weird Al is a relative, what I'm saying is the truth. And in any case, getting back to my father, after he punched me in the face and beat the crap out of me at the bottom of the basement stairs, after knocking me down the stairs, about a week or 10 days later, he came up to me. He never apologized, by the way. He came up to me and he said, "Son, I just wrote another book, and here's your autographed copy." I autographed a copy of my wonderful book of poetry and beauty that's going to make the world a beautiful place and a better place and all that other stuff. And in any case, I was like, wow, thank you, sir. I never called him Dad. God was my father. My mother did nothing about the abuse. I was not close to my parents. My family has this fantasy. My sister recently, on my birthday, sent me a picture of my sister sent me a picture of my mother holding me as a child, somehow trying to prove that she loved me. Okay, she held me on her lap. She never hugged me or anything. We were not a huggy, kissy family. But Buck gave me a copy of his book, autographed copy, after he beat the ever-loving crap out of me and almost unalived me. And I said, wow, thanks, sir. I'll put it with the others. And I went right to my room and threw it in the garbage. I threw it in the garbage along with the other stuff. And that was very therapeutic. It was very therapeutic taking the book of that poetry garbage and throwing it in the garbage and making sure that it had coffee and banana peels on it and all the other garbage to which it was so suited. That was very good therapy. I think that's how I survived the abuse. But young people, knowing that that day of getting kicked out of the house was coming, I always stacked my cash. I stacked my cash as best as I could. And when the day came and Buck put me out, I had $600 in my pocket, and all I had to do was go next door to my neighbor's house, who loved me like a son, and I could have I could have gone to college and been the doctor that I wanted to be. She was a very brilliant lady. She was actually part of the French underground during WW2. And if she had been caught, what the Germans would have done to her, what they did back then, was they would take that type of person prisoner, and they would put a very thin wire around their neck and screw the wire into the ceiling. Now, they weren't killing the person technically, but the person had to stand there with no food, no water, no sleep. And as long as the person could stand there, they could stay alive. But if they got tired or sleepy or passed out, the wire hanger would slowly decapitate and strangle the person. It was indeed a very nasty way to go. And speaking of nasty, one of my neighbors is smoking an enormous amount of skunk, which is a really nasty stuff. I call it the smell from hell, and my air cleaner is on high. The air cleaner is on high, and when it gets this bad, I have an auxiliary air cleaner that I sit on my lap, which I'm going to turn on right now, and it gives me fresh air so my catfish neighbors can smoke themselves into non-existence, and I'm enjoying fresh, crisp air. Isn't that ridiculous? That to me is so ridiculous that people spend money to ruin their health. And the one catfish called me in my room and said, I understand you're feeding the birds bread, and that's not good for the birds. It's killing the birds. And meanwhile, catfish has got a cigar up to his mouth, giving himself lip cancer and lung cancer. But he's going to tell me not to feed the birds. What a ridiculous world. Nobody ever said the devil made sense. So Raid the Fairy is in the house. I would love to know how you came up with that handle. I would love to know how you arrived at that handle. If you would take a minute and share that. And Raid the Fairy is reference to an historical figure. Who was Raid the Fairy? So let me see. Is Raid the Fairy someone like Forrest Gump? Who was Raid the Fairy?
Ray, a Cajun firefly from Disney's The Princess and the Frog, is known for his romantic and loyal nature. Voiced by Jim.
I love it. I love it. Raid the Fairy is a Disney Cajun Firefly from Disney's 2009 Princess and the Frog. Now, a farrier is somebody who shoes horses. So either you've misspelled the word, and you meant fairy, Fairey or IE. Give me the different spellings for fairy. I know there's 3 of them. There's Fairy, associated with winged Victorian fairy tale creatures. There's Faerie, an archaic or traditional spelling for older European and Celtic folklore. There's Faery, which is a poetic variant. That reminds me again of my father. My father had very poor hygiene. He bathed on Saturday, whether he needed it or not. Saturday was bath day, and he worked for a very prestigious company. I am shocked that they never pulled him aside and said, look, you need to put on some cologne and bathe and change your clothes. I'm shocked they never did, because when I went to work for the same company as a gardener, they told me one day that my short sleeve cutoff was inappropriate. And the boss there cussed like a sailor. And Mr. Marriott and I never had good interaction. When I was a child, I was very precocious. And my father had a 1963 Rambler Classic 440 with a 258 6-cylinder. And I claim that to be the first SUV because it was very high off the ground. And Marriott Corporation had this event for their spoiled brat manager kids at Haymarket, Virginia. And they would store all the toys at my father's house. Wonderful toys, nice toys. And my father would go out to Haymarket and MC this manager's picnic. And so one day he was supposed to follow Mr. Marriott out to the pavilion. And instead of taking the road, Mr. Marriott cut through the high grass in his Jeep. Now, my father was one of those people whose car could go through tornadoes and hurricanes and snowstorms and other similar acts of God. And so when Mr. Marriott cut through the high grass to beat my father in an ego contest to the pavilion, My father took off right behind the Jeep in this Rambler. My mother was terrified because she was practical. She knew that if my father hit a stump or a rock, it could take out the oil pan, and then we would have to have the car towed back from Haymarket to Maryland. So she was kind of white-knuckled. I hated the Rambler anyway. Ugliest car I've ever seen in my life. And yeah. So when we got to the pavilion, Mr. Marriott was actually angry. Picture 1963 Rambler Classic 440. Ugliest car. And they made a version of it called the Ambassador that looked like a gentleman's top hat that you accidentally sat on, and the car looked crooked. But Mr. Marriott was angry that my father made it to the pavilion behind the Jeep. And being a very precocious child, I lamented the Rambler as being all that my father could afford, being as Mr. Marriott touted his many vehicles. And I asked JW, I said, if you value my father so much, why don't you pay him more? Wrong thing to ask. Next thing I know, I'm in a clown outfit. Walking in 3 feet of horse crap, giving the manager's brats horseback rides in a circle, trudging through horse crap in a clown suit. And I had a little clown bag full of toys to give to the little brats. And so Roy Rogers was very big back then. And Marriott gave the children pistols, toy pistols. And you went like that, and a paper thing came out the end, and it said pop or bang, all right? And in any case, I was bent over giving this little brat toy out of my clown bag, which, by the way, I dragged through the crap as my way of being a suffragette and having to go through the humiliation of being in a purple and yellow clown suit, walking through 3 feet of horse crap at Mr. Millionaire's manager meeting. So I was bent over getting a toy for this one brat, and another brat kicked me in the butt and pushed me into the horse crap headlong. But I landed on the bag of toys. So the bag of toys got the most of the mushy horse crap. So, yeah. But what ended my illustrious career at Marriott Corporation headquarters, and I think Mr. Marriott thought that I did it on purpose, was that I worked for this gardener who was an ex-Marine, cussed like a sailor. nice man. And in order to cut this acres of grass at the main building, they gave me a push lawnmower. So in any case, I'm out front cutting all of this real tall grass, like foot tall grass, with a push mower, this little cheap push mower. And it wasn't powered at all. It wasn't self-powered or any of that stuff. And I'm out front trimming around the sidewalk, and the executives all had their cars right up against the building. So all they had to do was step out and into the building, into the air conditioning. And I'm out in the hot sun. And Mr. Marriott had a car with two engines, he said. And it had to have very special oil. And he touted the car to my father, how expensive it was. And it looked like a Ford Pantera. I don't think it was, because it had two motors it had two mid-engine motors that had to be timed up to run together. And it was always in the shop, blah, blah, and all that other stuff. So I'm cutting the grass, and somebody had thrown away a box of ketchup packages. Those little ketchup packets that you tear the top off and you put on your hamburger. Somebody had dropped or thrown away a box of those, and I ran it over with the lawnmower, and it splattered this 110,000. Now, this was years ago. This was years ago when 110 grand was about as high as you could go on a car. And it splattered hot grass and ketchup all over Mr. Marriott's brand new sports car. And the grass, having acid in it, made these little grass patterns in the paint. And I'm told that when the car was washed, that the grass stains remained on the paint. Now, my thing was, okay, I made a mistake. I should have had brains enough to backwalk the lawnmower with the chute pointing away from the very expensive lineup of cars. I should have been trained to do that by the boss. But I learned a lesson, and Mr. Marriott could have pulled the car around back, or I could have pulled it around back and washed it. But I think pretty much he thought I did it on purpose as retaliation for the near starvation paycheck that my Catholic family endured at behest of the Mormons. So, yeah. But in any case, fast forward to 1967, and my father bought this car that was supposed to be the young executive's car. It was still a Rambler. It was a Rambler Ambassador Diplomat. And it had two cool features. Well, it had a bunch of cool features. It had a cooling vent for a man to open the vent and blow air conditioning between his private parts. As he drove the car, you could reach down and open this little vent and Chill Your Willie. And it had a vent over top of the steering wheel that blew cold air conditioning in your face. That didn't work out so well because if the air conditioning picked up some dirt, it could blow it right into your eyes while you're trying to drive this very expensive Rambler automobile, which cost $7,400 back in 1967, which was $1,400 more than the top of the line Cadillac back then. Okay. A Cadillac Biarritz or Lincoln was $10,000. My father's Rambler was $7,400. Worst argument my parents ever had. My mother made cream chip beef on toast for dinner. I used to hate that. Now I adore it, but I can't have it. The platter of cream chip beef wound up on the floor. My mother was that angry with Bucks for trading in the crappy Rambler and buying another Rambler sports car. This Rambler was the most beautiful car I've ever seen in my life. It was a Coke bottle car. And let me see. Image 1967 AMC Rebel. I picked out the Rebel because the Rambler's not going to come up. The Rebel was a sports version of the Ambassador Diplomat. Beautiful. Beautiful car. And my father bought the one off of the owner of Courtesy AMC, and it had the weirdest combination of amenities. It had a bench front seat that were split bench buckets, but it had a shifter on the column instead of a console. So it was 6-passenger. It had a 390 with 2 4-barrel carburetors. 390 V8, had wire wheels, and it had fog lamps that were add-on. Big yellow European fog lamps, which literally saved our life. Saved our life. And it had a feature where you backed it up and you slammed on the brakes, and the brakes would automatically adjust themselves. So my father, being my father, every day he went through the routine of backing the car up and slamming the brakes on to tighten the brakes up. And so it literally burned the brakes out early. And when we came back from Haymarket one night, after doing the managers meeting for the brat kids, the brakes failed in the Ambassador. And back then they did not have signage on the road to tell you the edge of the road. There were no street lights or anything coming back from Haymarket. We were in the fog, in the dark, coming back. And I looked up in the mirror and I saw the brake lights were on, but the car wasn't slowing. And I asked Buck, I said, Why are you driving so fast? And in the era of no seatbelts, seatbelts didn't come into play until 1968. They were required. The only thing you did back then was you put your hand on the dashboard, hoping not to go through the windshield. So Buck told me to shut up and be quiet, and he was riveted to the road as the car went faster and faster alongside this mountainous road in the dark, in the fog. So, and the car had electric windows. My mother always feared being trapped in a car with electric windows. I don't know why, but she hated the car because of the electric windows. I would not sit in the back of the car because my father, when they would go to the beach, had a nasty habit of riding the rocking chair between two gasoline trucks. And I did not want to be anywhere in the car that I could not escape quickly. I always went with my mother to the beach, and all the cigarette smokers went with my father. They'd get out of the car and the smoke would just pour out of the car because all the smokers went with my father. But in any case, the evening that my father brought this marvelous sports car home, he named it Princess. And I can tell you, Princess hated me. And I washed the car one time, and I wiped behind the bumper, and it literally cut all of my fingers open, and I bled like a stuck pig. Oh, the blood just came rushing out of my fingers, and I had to put a rag around my hand and go into the house and bandage my hand up. Princess hated me. So my father brought this marvelous sports car home, and I had the audacity to push to the front of the family to look out and marvel at its magnificence. So my father's response to that was, since I had skipped my place in line in the family infrastructure, he took his cigarette and he got it nice and red, and he lifted up my shirt to crush the cigarette out on my stomach. So who does that to any child, much less your own child? Lift up, and you're a celebrity, you're famous. Whole world knows you. What a wonderful person and writer and poet and all around nice guy. But you're gonna lift your, what year? That was 1967. So I would have been 9 or 10. Lift up the shirt of your 9 or 10-year-old child and make sure that cigarette was nice and hot and orange in order to crush it out on your child's belly. So, and I still have the mark. I guess where the ashes acted like a tattoo under the skin, still have the mark. So I wonder if I could, let me see. I don't want to be immodest. It's still there. A reminder of the lesson of me getting out of line, literally, with my father. So instinctively, I slapped the cigarette out of his hand onto his grass green industrial wool carpet that he had just carpeted the entire house in. So, yeah. And he was horrified. He was horrified that I would smack a cigarette out of his hand. But what I'm coming to is actually the family put it on me that I was a very bad child. I was not. I cut the grass. I washed the car, which hated me. I brought my father his afternoon coffee, lovingly brought him the coffee, handed him the coffee, and would ceremoniously, mommy dearest, give him a kiss on the forehead as I gave him the coffee. Now, my parents' house was awash in cockroaches. We had every kind of cockroach. We had every kind of cockroach that you could have. German cockroaches, European cockroaches, the real nasty ones that look like armadillos with the two antenna coming out their butt. And my mother tried. She put boric acid around everything. But the reason was, back in the 50s, people cooked everything in bacon grease. And you cooked bacon, and then you would pour the grease into an old coffee can, which did not get put in the refrigerator. It got left out on the counter in a coffee can. And then the next morning, my mother would cook my father's eggs or scrapple or whatever. She would take the coffee can, get a big scoop of bacon fat, and put it in an iron skillet and cook our breakfast. Nice and hot, I guess killed all the salmonella. But by the end of the month, the coffee can got thrown in the trash because by then it was full of all sorts of bacon scraps and cockroach eggs and bodies and stuff. So I went to make my father's afternoon coffee lovingly, and I got a Marriott coffee cup out of the cabinet. Marriott had the right idea about coffee, but it didn't catch on. If you serve coffee in a big open cup, it gets cold fast. So Marriott had these wonderful thin coffee cups, but they were tall. They were very Middle Eastern inspired. They were thin and tall. And unfortunately for me, Mama Cockroach had crawled into the coffee cup and laid her eggs and then passed away because she couldn't get out of the cup or whatever. So it had not occurred to me to rinse the cup before pouring the hot coffee into it. And in any case, I poured the coffee in and put the cream and sugar and stirred it. Beautiful, back then, half Sanka and half Maxwell House. Back when coffee was the real deal. Beautiful smelling hot coffee, still swirling when I gave it to Buck. And he drank down about half of the cup of coffee. And then he started to like this and dragging his teeth with his finger. And he pulled out the biggest mama cockroach I'd ever seen in my life. But for some reason, miracle of God, He must have thought that it was a date. You know how dates have that shell on them that looks like the back of a cockroach? And anyway, he just shrugged it off and flicked the cockroach body away from himself. And it gave me a reprieve where I didn't get beaten to death. And he actually finished the rest of the cup of coffee. I was horrified because I realized what it was. I realized at that point what it was. And I grew a step up the ladder in maturity, because I knew at that point, whenever you get anything out of my parents' kitchen, you wash it before you use it. So my mother used to, what she called, soak the clothes. She had the electric dishwasher taken out because being from the country, they didn't use that stuff. She had the garbage disposal taken out and the electric dishwasher. And she did what was called soaking the dishes. And so every once a week, she would take in the cat dishes from the porch, which had old cat food and fly eggs and worms and all sorts of stuff on these plates, and wash them in with the human dishes. And the result was she came up with a real sick family. My sister, when she was 19, my sister got ill. She never got better. I believe it was from parasite infection. She just passed away a few weeks ago at the age of like 79, which meant she went 60 years being ill. And so the whole family was regulars at the doctor's office because of these dirty cat food dishes that were washed in with the human dishes. And my mother was a very brilliant lady. She worked at the Smithsonian. She actually worked on the first car filters, where you made a filter where you screwed it onto the engine to filter the oil from a car. And instead of using a paper filter back then, they filtered the oil through diatomaceous earth. They tried that. I remember her telling me that. She was a very brilliant lady, but she did not intend to have children, and she did not intend to be a fry cook for a big Catholic family. My father, after an accident, was supposed to be sterile. So she was good with getting married. They worked together at the same place. My mother lived with her spinster sister, my butch lesbian aunt, who was tough as nails. And after I got kicked out of the house, when I turned 16, I bought this great big Ford. I bought this great big huge Ford LTD or Galaxy. That was always my favorite car, was the LTD and Galaxy. I had 4 or 5 of them along the way. So I'd go over to my butch lesbian aunt's house and smoke cool cigarettes with her and drink old fashions. She was of the mindset that if you could hold your liquor, you could drink, even if you were a kid. Nowadays, you get arrested for that. But as long as we were smoking cigarettes and drinking, we got along great. But she had this BS story because homosexuality got you blacklisted with the government in the 30s and the 40s. And if she had told the Red Cross that she was a butch lesbian, she would have lost her job, got blacklisted. She would have been put on a government list as far as being a bad security risk. They had a big blacklist, you know. So she always told people that that she had loved this sailor and he jolted her, and she never got over it, never got married. But my sister-in-law and I went to visit her one time, and she focused in on my sister-in-law's rack. My sister-in-law at the time was quite beautiful and looked like Vina off of Star Trek, the beautiful blonde out of Star Trek, Vina. My sister-in-law and I got in the car, and she told me, she said, "Did you notice Aunt Mary was eyeballing my rack?" And it made her uncomfortable. I said, well, you know, she thinks she's fooling everybody, but we all knew the deal. So, but she loved me like a son. She loved me like a son. And this particular Ford was very tall. Back then, they made the cars taller and with a high roof so that you could wear a hat. A gentleman could wear a hat and drive the car. It was almost as tall as an SUV. I worked for a garbage company. I worked for 2 garbage companies, and I went to college at night. Nobody gave me anything. I worked for 2 garbage companies, and I went to college at night. And I would go back into the garbage company yard to pick the car up, and so I could go someplace and shower and get ready for college. And there was this miserable catfish hillbilly who drove a 1962 Corvette Stingray, a very low car. And so every time I came in, I would have to go into the shop and beg the guy to move the Corvette, which he never did. He never moved the Corvette. He would come out and he would say, "All right, back up, stop, go forward, back up." And I would have to inch my way out of the parking space as to not run into the fiberglass Corvette with this massive 4,500-pound Ford. So one afternoon of the heat and working like a dog on the garbage truck, the guy came out with me to tell me to back up and go forward. And I had had just about enough. And the devil was like, "Why don't you just run over the Corvette?" And I gave in to temptation. I was like, that sounds like fun. So I got in the massive Ford 4-door Galaxie 500 Interceptor. It had a tag on it that said Police Interceptor. I think it was a 428 or 429 or 352 were the cop car engines, massive engine. I started it up, bum, 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 bum. And the car was like, Will, I'm with you all the way. I know what you're going to do. I'm with you, Will. I put the car in reverse, clunk. Ford's always had a healthy clunk when you put them in gear. Chrysler's always had this meow when you put them in reverse, a whining noise, but Ford always had this reassuring clunk. So I put the car in reverse, and Huber started to go, come on back, come on back. And I had my foot on the brake, and I started to press down on the gas, and you could feel the tension in the drivetrain as the pressure from the automatic transmission met up with the brakes being on. And the car was like, Will, I'm with you, baby. Just let me go. And I pushed down halfway on the gas, let my foot up off the brake, and it was glorious. The Ford just backed up onto the hood of the Corvette and sat there with the gas tank of the Ford sitting on the hood of the Corvette with the rear wheels spinning in the air and my bumper almost touching the windshield of the Corvette. Beautiful how the cars fit together. Huber came over and pulled the driver's door open, dragged me to the ground, and went bam, 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 bam. It punched me in the face 4 or 5 times. Bam, bam, bam. And man, it was something about when I was younger. It was like various people thought they had liberty to beat the crap out of me. So I looked at him and I didn't admit to anything. I said, oops, sorry. My foot slipped off the brake. Oops, sorry. Bam, bam. I mean, this guy put his full body into every blow. So, in any case, we got the 2 cars separated. And the cool thing was the Corvette wasn't hurt at all. It had a scratch up the center of the hood, but it had essentially mushed down and hugged the ground as the Ford climbed on top of it like an unwelcome lover. So I got out of the car and I was messed up bad. I was all bloodied and my face was beginning to swell. I looked like the guy out of Animal House. And I told Huber, I said, I'm going to make you a deal. You don't call the cops for me running over your car, and I don't call the cops for assault and battery. How about that? So the next day when I came in to get my car, the Corvette was parked all the way across. It was almost parked all the way out to Veers Mill Road. It was parked so far. It was parked so far away from the Ford. So the owner of the gas station where we parked at always barked at me about not chalking up the wheels of the garbage truck when I was fueling it up with one of those old hand crank diesel systems. So I pull in the yard, back up, I've got the truck in park. I think it had park. It either had park or just neutral with the handbrake. It was an automatic transmission in this old garbage truck. And I'm cranking the fuel into the tank of the truck, and the hose pulls out of the tank and falls on the ground. And it was just like that outer limb where the little child is riding the bicycle behind the truck, and the lady and her husband get in the Ford T-Bird, and they have to outrun time. Somehow they outrun time in a Ford Thunderbird, and they make a way of tying a seatbelt around the gear shift of this truck so that when they go back into time, the truck backs up and stops before running over the kid. It was a cool, scary Outer Limits, but in any case, the garbage truck was barely moving and the brakes were on and it was going squeak, but it was building up momentum at the top of the hill. And man, when it got past the point where the brakes couldn't hold it, it cut loose. And so I was running next to the truck, trying to throw tires and throw metal and whatever underneath the wheels to stop the truck. I even picked up the body of a gas pump, solid iron gas pump, to throw under the wheels. I was that panicked and that strong during that moment. Fear gives you incredible strength. So the truck just ran over the gas pump and kept heading for the gas station with its forks down like an angry bull. It was one of those garbage trucks with the forks that dumps a can over top of itself and bathes itself in garbage water each time it dumps the refuse. So Mr. Norris's son and the catfish hillbilly with the Corvette are standing at the window of the bay door looking out at what a beautiful day it is. And I can see them. They see the garbage truck coming and they take off. Now, Mr. Norris was deaf, and he was working on this brand new top of the line Buick Centurion convertible. Unbeknownst to him, umpteen tons of angry garbage truck are coming thundering down this hill towards his gas station with its horns down. So in a last-ditch effort, I run next to the cab of the truck. I hop in the window. I reach in and I put the shifter into reverse. But of course, it didn't catch because I would have had to put it in reverse and stepped on the gas pedal for the transmission to actually lock in reverse. The brake was still on. So the garbage truck and I both hit the gas station at the same time, me hanging out the window with my butt in the air. The forks of the garbage truck went up under the roof. The front of the garbage truck knocked the bay doors down onto the Buick convertible with Mr. Norris inside. And that was a grace of God moment, because the bricks and everything, the roofing would have unalived Mr. Norris if the doors hadn't fallen on the top of the convertible and then all the bricks and everything fell on top of the doors and kept him from being hurt. So around the corner comes my boss, who was one of the men in the Army that took place in the Broken Arrow experiments, where they detonated a nuclear device and then they sent soldiers in after they nuked the area to see if the soldiers could run around with their rifles and see the effect of the nuke on the soldiers. And so 30 years after, my boss got this horrible cancer, and it literally ate him alive. So he comes, and I think what I did also added to the progression of his disease, because he came around the corner and I got off of the garbage truck and I said, "Mr. McMurray, you'll never guess what happened." He looked at me and he said, "Back the truck up, check for survivors, adjust the brakes, and go pull your route." Well, I didn't know how to adjust brakes on the truck. I did it. I backed the truck up, went into the leftover of the gas station. All of us took the bricks and cinder block off of the doors, and we found Mr. Norris, and we dusted him off, and he looked stunned because he's deaf and he had a building fall on him. So we kind of spun him around and dusted him off and gave him a pat on the back. "You're okay. You're not going to sue us or anything." Right? So long story short, I was responsible for the improvement of the area because they tore the gas station down and they built Rockville Medical. So Rockville Medical Center is the result of my having run down Norris Brothers Amoco with a garbage truck. So I climbed under the garbage truck with a wrench and a hammer and guesstimated tightening the brakes. And they came out really well. I was surprised. I pulled my route. I came back and Norris Brothers Amoco was all boarded up with plywood. And then we had to move the yard. Yeah. We had to move the yard. I didn't put the company out of business. Another guy put it out of business because he drove this enormous truck called an autocar with a 7-foot long hood, 7 or 8 feet, enormous truck, very fun to drive, very high up off the ground. The guy was an Englishman who smelled of rotten beer. He was an alcoholic, and he drank beer in a paper bag and drove this truck. And so he gets to the Wheaton Glenmont Shopping Center, and he goes in to get a tall 40 in a paper bag. And for some reason, a customer in a Fiat Bertone parked in front of the autocar truck. Now, Fiat Bertone was a little teeny sports car that was literally 2 feet off the ground. Image Fiat Bertone. Little teeny Mazda Miata looking thing. And so they park in front of the autocar, and they go into a pizza place to have their lunch or whatever. Barry comes out of the liquor store, walks around the back of the truck, hops up in the cab, pops the beer open, takes a good long swig, puts the rest of the beer in between the seats, and puts the truck in. It was a 7-gear truck, so you could start off in second. He puts the truck in gear, pulls forward, and runs right over top of the Fiat. Thank God nobody was in the car. Thank God. And so he runs over top of the Fiat and starts pushing it through the parking lot. And so the truck's not getting good momentum, and he puts the truck in a lower gear and steps down on the accelerator more. And people on the sidewalk are going, wait, stop. And Barry toots the air horn, toot, and waves back at the people and proceeds to push the Fiat all the way out into, it's like Glen Mill Road or Mill Run or Indian Mill Road. I remember the road because my beloved psychology teacher was driving along in his station wagon, and he was hit head on by a van, 2 large vehicles, and he went through the windshield of the station wagon, and then he went through the windshield of the van. He went through 2 windshields, and he was a beloved teacher, and he always said I would grow up to be a great psychologist. Mrs. Goldstein, God bless her, said I would be a great baritone singer. And Miss Lynch, who looked like a doo-doo bug in a dress, very disgusting lady, very dry, nasty, sarcastic sense of humor. She said she taught because she didn't do housework. And so she had a maid, and she would come in and teach so that she didn't have to do housework. And Miss Lynch said that I would be a garbage collector. And so when I got put on the garbage truck, my high school was on our customer list. And I went with this guy to learn how to drive the auto car. And we went to pull into the driveway of the high school. And this little hillbilly teacher, Miss Hurd, who looked like the little hillbilly off of South Pacific, horrible lady, Diane Hurd. I remember her quite well. Very foul, despicable lady. Cut the truck off in her VW Beetle cabriolet. And so the driver leaned on the air horn, and so it drew the attention of the crowd, and everybody was like, look, Will's in the garbage truck. He's a garbage man. Just like Miss Lynch said, he's a garbage man. The whole high school came out looking at the encounter between Diane Hurd and myself in the garbage truck. And so we got it straightened out, and the driver at the time was Roy. The other guy got fired, and Roy took his place. And Roy had been in prison from 14 years old because he bootlegged, and Another man tried to rob him or stop him. And Roy put his shotgun out the window of his car and let both barrels into the man's face. And when telling the story to me as I'm sitting in the truck, he said, I thought it was salt, but it were lead. So effectively, he blew the guy's head off and went into juvie and then into prison at the ripe old age of 14. And then he got out when he was like 30-ish. And he's wearing these Daisy Duke shorts. And he's got all kinds of bullet marks and stab marks. And he was telling me about dropping the soap in prison and all of this other ghastly stuff, and how he had mistakenly unalived this man. So I'm literally looking in shock at the guy and scratching at the door, trying to feel for the door handle so I can hop out of the truck if need be. But nothing came of it until one night. I don't know how I got involved with this one-eyed girl named Tina. Tina drove a 1971 Chevy Vega, which was the most dangerous car on the road without being driven by a one-eyed lady. But as it turned out, Tina took me to an Elks Lodge for drinks and refreshments, whatever. And so it turned out Roy had dated Tina. And when Roy went looking for Tina, he ran into a coworker of mine, and he hadn't learned his lesson. He pointed the shotgun at my coworker, and just as it cleared his head and his face, he shot off a round asking where I was. So that's what I had coming for me, was this ex-con with his shotgun looking for his one-eyed girlfriend. And I don't know how he did it. I think it was because I had a company vehicle with a radio or a phone that my coworker, who lives in Florida now, told me that Roy was indeed looking for me and indeed had his shotgun with him. So, yeah. And then one day the boss came in and he said, it's all over. We can't get insurance anymore for the company, so we can't run the trucks. It's over. And the company was disbanded. And that, as Forrest would say, is that. I have to get ready and take my medicine and get something to eat. It's always fun hanging out with you all. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My PayPal and my Cash App are in the description box if you want to celebrate my birthday, which I'm 70 and holding. I'm 70 and holding and will not admit to anything future of being 70. So I have lived out all the years of God's promise. Anyway, I got the hungry hiccups, so I have to go get a snack or something. I love you all. And I look forward to being with you again. Poppity Pops out.